Welcome to SVG-TV News for Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has condemned what it says was an unauthorized post by hackers on the Facebook page of SVG's High Commission in London with apparent reference to the UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Although it did not go into details about the nature of the reference, the ministry said the dastardly act in no way represents the views of the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who will continually respect and value the cordial relationship with the government and people of the United Kingdom. The ministry said as of today, Wednesday, June 10th, 2020, a thorough investigation has been launched by officials at the High Commission of SVG in London in an effort to identify the source of the hack and to mitigate any future attempts to thwart the relationship between both countries. The ministry further noted that the High Commissioner of SVG in London, His Excellency Sino Lewis, immediately expressed great regret to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, reiterating the High Commission's profound respect for the British Prime Minister, government and people. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves on radio today announced that a new Constituency Boundaries Commission is being set up. The three-member commission is composed of a chairman who shall be appointed by the Governor-General in his own deliberate judgment, one member who shall be appointed by the Governor-General acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, and one member who shall be appointed by the Governor-General acting in accordance with the advice of the Leader of the Opposition. On the radio today, PM Gonsalves said his pick for the government's representative on the commission is lawyer Stephen Williams.
And I've named that person, Stephen Williams, and I have named I've sent the letter, a copy of the letter, to the Leader of the Opposition, because he has to advise the Governor-General on naming someone. I don't know if there's going to be any contention with any area. 15 seats is not going to be 17, it's 15 seats.
10 years ago, the main opposition New Democratic Party went to court over an attempt by Parliament to increase the number of constituencies from 15 to 17. Since then, there have been two elections based on the same boundaries, won by the Gonsalves-led Unity Labour Party. PM Gonsalves explained that as it now stands, he will allow the process to take its course and for the new commission to do its work.
I had spoken to the Leader of the Opposition, indicate to him that we need to do the commission, because since then the census has been published. Remember, the census was done in 2012. Then while they were doing it, the place got burnt down, the room, then they had to do it over, and it was published afterwards. So we have to have that done. So the last time too that a proper commission was done was 2005, for the 2005 elections. So if you read in the Constitution, you'll see 17 seats, but that's because we had passed a law in 2010. But there was an error where they put 17 there, because 17 comes into play only if all the other steps follow with the commission and the publication. Things happen after the dissolution of the House. And that's why the Attorney General had to correct that.
The Prime Minister again alluded to general elections taking place sometime this year.
So even though we have COVID, I have to make sure all the machinery is in place for us, for the people, to sometime this year deliver a verdict as to what we're doing. Are they going to give the comrade a fifth term to continue all the work we were doing and make the changes as we see it in place? You know, we don't get stale. You notice we are innovative. We are the government of continuity and change. Or you're going to look elsewhere. I hear that some people making a plea say, give me a chance.
The distribution of building materials by the Ministry of Housing has commenced. Applicants are being reminded that there is a process and the maximum or total cash value a person can get in materials is $2,500. On the radio today, PM Gonzalez said an assessment has to be done by officials of the Ministry of Housing to ensure that there is fair distribution of the materials.
The Ministry of Housing has assessors, and they go out and they assess. Sometimes you may find this in one home, 3 persons may put in applications for materials in relation to the one home. So if you don't go on the ground and assess, in one home may double or triple dip. It doesn't mean that they don't want they don't need the materials, you know. It's just that you have to be fair in your distribution. So the assessors, when they go out, they will make the findings.
The Prime Minister said the $4.5 million worth of building materials purchased by the government were budgeted for this year. He noted there will be certain cases where additional assistance for an individual may be considered.
If it's a case where an individual, a particularly elderly individual, or some special circumstance, they go a little bit above. But that is as recommended by the officials in the ministry in conjunction with the assessors. I urge everybody who are applying, and some people have applied from before. Sometimes somebody gets somebody to put a list together. You see the list. 10, 15, 20, 30, $40,000. Obviously not going to get that.
The Prime Minister said the distribution of building materials is done annually and is not being used for election purposes as is usually suggested.
But any time in an election year, when materials are being distributed, the opposition get very antsy. But we distribute materials every year. Some years more than others, as I said, depending on the housing program which is being done. So I want to speak to the issue and speak to it openly. If anybody thinks that by now, and knowing Ralph, that Ralph is going to deny somebody materials because they support the NDP,
SVG now has only 2 active cases of COVID-19 following the receipt yesterday of 91 negative COVID-19 PCR results from CAFA's Public Health Laboratory in Trinidad. A release from the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, said this batch of results included 9 negative results, which were the second ones for 9 COVID-19 positive persons, medically clearing them. It said 205 crew members of Royal Caribbean Cruise Line were released from quarantine yesterday following the receipt of the negative results for their second COVID-19 PCR. There are still 153 crew members who have not had a result from a second PCR to clear them from quarantine. These crew members are urged to remain in quarantine until the receipt of these results, despite the expiration of the initial 14 days of mandatory quarantine. The Health Services Subcommittee continues to urge Vincentians to remain vigilant and to support the returning nationals in their strict compliance with quarantine and isolation. The Consulate of the Republic of Guyana in SVG is urging nationals residing here in SVG, and particularly those who arrive in the country in March this year and were unable to return to Guyana due to restrictions imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic, that they should contact the office to register for their repatriation. The consulate said it has begun the process instituted by the Guyana Ministry of Foreign Affairs by taking information from those concerned, and that the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment has already facilitated the testing process by taking the PCR test mandated by the government of Guyana for those wishing to return. The consulate said this exercise is initiated for nationals who are stranded due to the pandemic and are in possession of returned airline tickets. For other persons, including nationals of SVG, Guyanese, and others desirous of traveling to Guyana, the same protocol applies. The consulate, however, noted that traveling to Guyana is not automatic and will be subject to other considerations. Leader of the opposition, Dr. Godwin Friday, said crime in SVG must be brought under control, noting that certain types of crime are being committed as if they are the norm. Dr. Friday was speaking on NDP's Monday night live Facebook program.
About this, we have been loud about it, that we can't allow the situation to deteriorate to the point where it becomes chronic in our society, especially the more serious aspects of crime, such as homicides, burglaries, break-ins. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, unfortunately, one of the things that we have very serious problem with the sexual crimes, rape and offenses against minors, and these are things that we have to address at the root cause, and the state has a critical role to play.
Dr. Friday, however, noted that excessive use of force to bring crime under control must be a last resort.
Citizens, providing safety for our citizens is the essential role of the state. They have a monopoly on the use of force and power, and these are things that we have to use as a last resort, but create an environment in which those problems will be less likely to happen, to mitigate those problems, and so we don't have to rely on force to the extent that there seems to be happening.
And Vice President of the NDP and Member of Parliament for Central Kingston, Major Sinclair Leacock, has raised the issue of unemployment of youths in his constituency, which he said is frustrating and disheartening. Leacock was speaking at his party's virtual meeting last evening.
But that was the lamentation, that 80-something million surplus money, an additional budget, they couldn't feel lifted. And as I turned my back and I walked off, jokingly, because I don't want misconstrued, misrepresented, but you have to internalize and interpret. He said, don't worry, no measure, don't worry. I'm going to bring me 40-foot container with the AKs. Because that's where we have brought a substantial portion for young people without hope. The only thing is to get even. Violence. Many can relate to that. It's a sad indictment of a government that speaks about letting the eagles fly. Let people soar.
The opposition MP said with the financial assistance being offered to persons in various sectors to cushion the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, he observed that there is no long-term plans for growth or sustainable jobs offer, which is also a cause for concern.
Note. With every last cent of money that is expected to be spent by you, the taxpayers, over this COVID period, not a single cent, a single dollar is identified as creating sustainable jobs for the people. Where there are few grants, it's about buying votes of every category, every class of people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. No depth in thought of how hard-earned monies should be reinvested, not just for the rainy day or for the hurricane season that's coming in, but beyond the COVID period.
As it regards to the distribution of building materials, Leacock cautioned about the distribution process.
You drop the lumber here, drop the cement here, drop the galvanized, and it puts pressure on me and on Kay and Brother Bruce and other colleague candidates. It puts pressure on us because having received the free lumber, cement and galvanized, the point is made by Major, it cost me $100 and something to get it. In other words, The insinuation is, can you give me that? And if you can't do that, could you throw in 100 blocks in it to see what could come out of it? I mean, it is pressuring us to augment a process intended to cut our own throats.
In other news, SVG Solidarity Group, an organization comprising Vincentian groups and individuals, will hold a march and rally this Friday, June 12th, in support of citizens of the USA in their struggles for justice and a better society. In an earlier interview with SVG-TV News, Vice President of the Solidarity Group, Laura Stevens Dublin, said they were awaiting permission from the police and the Ministry of Health to go ahead with the march and rally. Today, Dublin told SVG-TV News that permission has been granted under the condition that persons follow the COVID-19 guidelines of the Ministry of Health by wearing masks and that there be no music. The march will commence at Victoria Park from 3:30 p.m. on Friday for Heritage Square, where a rally will be held. Participants are asked to wear black. Dublin said the event is centered around the theme March and Rally for a Better World in this season of pandemic.
Be on time. We're gathering at Victoria Park at 3. We want to be out of there by 3:30. We have asked for assistance from a number of organizations who have experience in marching, so we can upkeep with the social distancing. I'm calling on persons to be on your best behavior. We don't want any bad behaving. Let St. Vincent be an example of an organized people. We want to be organized. We want this event to be a successful one, but we want to make more so we want to make an impact, because we want the world to see that as a nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that we will stand and fight for something of a good cause. Because we are black. And we must remember, it did not start in America, but it started in the Caribbean. That is how some of us were brought to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
According to Dublin, the aim of the march and rally is not only about the George Floyd case and racism, but about demanding changes in the way police perform their duties, which she said is an issue worldwide, including here in SVG.
Solidarity with the families and friends of George Floyd and other African Americans killed at the hands of the police. Call for speedy justice for all, appropriate compensation. 2. Solidarity with protesters demanding police accountability and liability, especially in circumstances of police brutality and violence. Call for a new relevant legislation and policies and their strict public enforcement. 3. Solidarity with citizens struggling against racism in all its manifestations. Call for heavily financed affirmative, comprehensive programs for disadvantaged persons of color.